nobody on the Pittsburgh side would know this better than Patrick Queen, so when Queen speaks about what it takes to go at Lamar Jackson, it's well worth the listen. And he did address this yesterday on the South Side.
He wants to win. He'll do whatever it takes to win, and he knows what it takes. So just from my perspective, just going against him, just being able not to tackle him in practice, finally get a chance to actually tackle him, that should be fun. And he's just a great competitor. He's a great athlete. He can do whatever he wants on the field, as we all know. So for me, it's just going against the best.
Yep, and I'm going to maintain right here and right now that Jackson won't be the number one challenge the Steelers are going to face this Sunday. Good morning to you. Good Thursday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into hockey and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of the other two teams in town that I cover, the Penguins and the Pirates. The number one rusher in the National Football League, and it's an old story, but it's an old story with a new spin, is Derrick Henry. Henry is 30 years old, and he is the farthest thing in the world from being washed up. 1,120 yards. Yes, already he's a 1,000-yard rusher. His average carry is 6.1, and he has scored 12 touchdowns. Now, he has done this within the framework of an already dynamic offense because of Jackson, and because of Mark Andrews and Zay Flowers and other threats that the Ravens have. There's a reason that the Ravens overall have the number one offense in the league. But Henry, as I see it, is the figurative straw that came in from the outside to stir the drink, and he has stirred it. He, to me, has been the difference. He, to me, is what has separated, we're worried about that quarterback running, versus, wow, we have no idea which of them is going to run. And if we try to do something like close in on Jackson, then Henry's just going to blow right past us. And I'm going to say this in the same context that I shared last week, right around this time, about why it would be a big deal if the Steelers didn't have to face Brian Robinson of the Commanders in Landover, which of course they didn't. And it's because if they were going to do what they did, boy, did they ever, to Jaden Daniels, 4 rushing yards for Daniels. Keanu Benton told me that by the time the second quarter came around, Daniels didn't even want to run the ball. He didn't even want to tuck it and go. Well, I believe that. You know what else I believe? If Robinson were there, Daniels wouldn't have stopped running altogether. He would have just turned around and handed it to Robinson. Why? Because a contain type front isn't going to be a great fit for stopping or even slowing down a power back. And Henry, of course, is the premier power back of this generation. Henry's going to go in a straight line. And as Mike Tomlin brought up himself on Tuesday, not only can Henry get you that much, but he also has enough breakaway speed to turn it into the full 6. He's been doing that for quite a while, obviously most of that in Nashville. Now, needless to say, I'm not telling you anything that the Steelers don't know, in particular Arthur Smith, since Smith was his offensive coordinator in Nashville. Smith was the one who figured out, well, let's see, I've got Ryan Tannehill here, I've got A.J. Brown, I can, hey, if I run this guy when everybody else is worried about this passing game and these tight ends, he's going to see grass galore in front of him. And that's what happened with Henry. Henry became, especially with the Titans, at one stage of his career, just unstoppable. You could try whatever it is that you wanted, stack the box and so forth, but he'd find a way. He'd go at you, but he'd eventually find a way to get through. And unlike the stuff that Najee Harris talks about related to the Steelers, it's not the 15-round fight because Henry wouldn't take till the fourth quarter to do that damage. This, I think, is the Steelers' biggest challenge. Now, how do they counter that? Well, on one hand, I'm still a proponent of making sure that you contain Lamar. And what's more, I'm a proponent of doing it similarly to what they did in Landover. Principally, and players confirmed this for me, this was the responsibility of both edge rushers. This was TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith not running past Daniels. They were just going toward him and making sure that he didn't get by them. They didn't want him running to the left or right, but they also didn't want him rolling out to the left or right. They just wanted him to stay in the middle of the field. So what that means for the rest of the group is that you're going to have to bring down Henry without that much help from your edge rushers, without a blitz. You're not going to see the Steelers start blitzing now. They're not about to mix new stuff into what's been working. And I don't think you're going to see a spy, like, for example, telling you Landon Roberts, a really, really good run stopper, obviously, hey, you just watch Henry. You just keep an eye on him. Wherever he goes, you go. Because I'm not sure you can afford to be that predictable anywhere on that side of the football against this opponent, meaning in general, not Henry, but the Ravens. So what do? Well, here comes the big wisdom to be shared from this particular episode. You tackle. You tackle with a lot of gusto. You tackle with a lot of guts, because it's going to take a good amount of that sort of thing to bring him down again and again and again. Now, am I open-minded to bringing Deshaun Elliott and or Minkah Fitzpatrick closer to the line of scrimmage? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't want Flowers running free in my secondary either. So tackle. That means Benton. That means Cam Hayward. That means Isaiah Loudermilk, who I'm sure is going to be out there more than the usual. That means Larry Ogunjobi. And of course it means Roberts. And of course it means Queen. The Bengals this past week held Henry to 60 yards. Still lost, still gave up a lot of points, but they limited the damage, and that's going to be number one atop the priority list. When we come back, J1Q.
This segment of Daily Shot is brought to you by our good friends at Mike's Beer Bar. They're located on Federal Street, directly across from PNC Park. Mike has more than 500 beers on tap, including from more than 50 local breweries. Stop in and say hello. Tell Mike we sent you. Mike's Beer Bar.
Today's J1Q comes from Brian, who says, DK, the Steelers defense sacked Jaden Daniels 3 times, kept him to 4 yards rushing. Can they do something similar to Lamar Jackson this week? Rather than going back through the stuff that I already brought up in the opening segment on this subject, I'm going to instead seize/embrace this opportunity to read for you the totality of the Steelers' cumulative career work against Jackson in his 6 meetings with Pittsburgh. It's not just that he's gone 2-4 in those games. It's not just that he has the 66.8 passer rating. It's not just that he's been limited to 4 touchdowns while throwing 7 interceptions. It's not just that he has fumbled the ball 7 times. It's not just that he's been sacked 20 times. It's that he's got 0 rushing touchdowns. Think about that. Think about who we're talking about. Think about the amount of time that he has spent on a football field taking snaps against his franchise's arch rival with all the knowledge that he and John Harbaugh and the offensive staff of the Ravens have against the Steelers, to face the Steelers. And then think about him having 0, count them, 0 rushing touchdowns. This is not one of those stats, this 2-4 thing, Lamar struggles against the Steelers, that's just based on a team's win-loss record when you happen to be out there, because those usually aren't fair. This is crazy fair. This is off the charts fair, because this is exactly who he has been against the Steelers. Are there little asterisks along the way? Sure there are. Last season, the Ravens receivers must have dropped. I don't know that I'd seen an opponent perform like that against the Steelers. It had to be double digits. There had to be double-digit drops by the Baltimore receivers. And yet, all of these other numbers also exist. It's a real thing. And if you want to take this even further, do you happen to remember the year that the Titans played the Ravens in the first round of playoffs? It was in Baltimore. And it would have been a pretty significant upset if the Titans would have won by every accounting. And they did, in large part because Mike Vrabel, a player for the Steelers a long time ago, used the Pittsburgh film to prepare his guys and his coaches for the plan that they'd apply. Now, why don't all opponents do this? Well, that answer is pretty simple. Not all opponents have edge rushers the way the Steelers have traditionally had them. It's really, really important to seal from the left and from the right. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Steelers. Going to have one more of these tomorrow.